I'm putting you on the spot.
He's so mean.
It's 2:00. It's time for our Twitch channel.
Yay!
So today, one of the things that we wanted to talk about were some of the inspirations behind First Impact: Rise of a Hero. Why we actually chose the character to have elemental powers, what that actually means to us, what are inspirations that we drew everything from.
Yeah.
We're just jumping straight into this. Should we say hi, everyone?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dudley. For those of you who are now tuning in for the first time ever.
I'm Keith. And so we're Red Meat Games, and we're talking about our game First Impact: Rise of a Hero, and which is in VR, and it's something super cool and exciting, and it's an open world action RPG with a great narrative. It has missions, story-based content there that also, like, as you play through, you discover this world, which is your island home is under attack, and it's up to you to save it. And you're a superhero.
And we also mentioned that it's in VR, and it's almost done, guys. It's almost done.
Almost done. A week and a half, and we're here to tell you more about the game.
Yeah. Please ignore the pigs in the background. That's just because, you know,
We had a pig party.
A while back,
A flying pig party, yeah.
But
and the balloon behind me here.
Yeah, but you know, we like having the pigs. They give us, you know, they make the office feel less empty sometimes, especially when, you know, you're the first one here in the morning.
Oh, that wasn't yesterday then that you were talking about.
I'm talking about today.
Making up for yesterday is what you're saying.
Anyway, on to matters of great importance. So, in First Impact: Rise of a Hero, you play as a superhero with 4 elemental powers. So, powers over earth, air, fire, and water.
And a lot of people actually say, oh, like the last Airbender. But the thing is, we've had heroes around for 50 years, at least almost 60 years now with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four, even though they've had a terrible string of movies since 1996, and I never saw that one.
You mean like the last one that was absolutely amazing? It was
no,
2
like
hours.
all of them that were absolutely amazingly bad. Bad.
But the last reboot was so good. I didn't even finish it. It was that good.
Can we just... This whole podcast is making me sick now. This is gross. Let's just stop talking about it. Let's talk about just the comic book.
Yes, let's talk about it.
So, so my personal history behind the Fantastic Four is when I was 8 years old, my family used to go camping at this one campground when we were kids, and we used to have a great time. And when I was 8, I was finally allowed the first year to go with my big brother to walk down the street and go to the corner store. And when I was at the corner store, I saw a whole rack of comics, and I had, like, I don't know, $1 or something, 75 cents in my pocket, something small. And I was like, oh my gosh, and my parents gave me money and I can get candy. But instead, I went for the comic book, and I picked up issue number 221 of the Fantastic Four. It was involving aliens that had crash landed, I think, in the Antarctic, and then the Fantastic Four had to use their powers to find out who they were. And then that I was sold. That was the first comic book I ever read. That I ever owned. I actually had friends who I had comics and read theirs a little bit. But that was the first comic book that I owned myself, and I was really excited. And then I actually had a subscription to Fantastic Four. I did. And then I had a whole
subscription.
Yeah, you ever hear of that? I grew up out in the country, so I had to get it mailed out to me until I was old enough that I could actually. I was one of those. So one of them poor kids who lived out in the country had to have things sent in.
We don't really get, like, you know, from being from Barbados, mail was not really a big strong suit. My country, like, getting mail from, like, North America, not really an easy thing to do. So yeah, for sure.
So anyway, but then later on, I got a job as when I was a teenager, and so I would go over to the comic book store, and you just put in your order, which ones you wanted held, and then they would hold those, and then I'd go in once a month, pick them all up, and it was great, or every other month, something like that. But anyway, Fantastic Four was the first comic book series that I read, and I really fell in love with all the characters, especially the Thing. And I think it was probably because I was hitting puberty or preteen at that point, and then puberty. And he's the outsider of the group. He's the only one who's not related. He's just a friend of Reed Richards. He has super strength, but he also has that the armor plating behind him. So it was kind of, I don't know, a defensive mechanism.
And he also physically just doesn't look like the others, because the others still look relatively human versus him.
Exactly, and so he feels lost as an outsider, and he's afraid to show his face and stuff like that. Anyway, so it helped at the time when I was a teenager going through life's hardships. I have a teenager at home now who's going through life's hardships. But I found it very interesting, and I didn't really clue into it at first, and it wasn't until I read the comic issue with the Super Skrull. So I don't know, are you familiar with the Super Skrull? Okay, so the Super Skrull, the Skrulls are an alien race. They battle.
I was thinking like a scroll.
No, Skrull.
Oh,
Sorry,
Skrull. Or Skrull?
Yes, like
Dang.
skull with an R.
I was smart though. I knew how to spell that.
So they're the green evil aliens as opposed to the blue aliens, who are kind of badass, sometimes mean, want to destroy the Earth for funsies. But anyway, these green aliens, they are also shapeshifters. They can change shape. They can do all kinds of like
Martian Manhunter?
Yeah, exactly. Right, where they can take on different appearances. They don't have density control or any of his other powers, telepathy and whatnot. But the Super Skrull, he actually changed himself so he could have all of the Fantastic Four's power. So that, and there was this one really cool issue where he actually is divided in four, right, crosswise through his chest and then up and down. And so each quarter was, one was fire, one was rock, and then I realized, oh, Reed Richards is water, and the invisible one, or back then the invisible girl, was air. And so that all made sense. It's like, oh, they're the four elements, that's why. And then you need all four elements as the family to defeat all the world's evils as a family. Yes. So I thought that was cool. I thought that was a really great storytelling gimmick that they actually used, and I honestly was not very bright. I probably wasn't a bright child.
Lord, Keith, don't say that.
So anyway, that they are the first superhero family with the four elements. Yeah. So then later on, also going back to when I was a kid, did you ever watch Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends?
No, I've seen The Amazing Spider-Man, which is a difference.
Oh, sorry. You mean the movie? that movie is terrible.
I mean,
sorry, we're talking about
the cartoon series that was released maybe a few years back.
Yeah, sorry.
Still relatively recent, but I know that they're different. Yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends are two different things. I at least know that much.
Speaking of Spider-Man, did you see the new Spider-Man Homecoming trailer?
No. Everybody online is talking about it. All of the internet is talking about this.
Ooh. Except Dudley.
Well, I'm not the internet.
I think it actually looks kind of good, but there is a scene that's totally out of the best Spider-Man movie, which is Spider-Man 2.
With Tobey Maguire?
Yeah. Out of Spider-Man 2. There's a scene. There's
the
a scene out of it.
I would never have imagined.
If you watch the trailer, do you want me to spoil it for you?
No, don't spoil it.
Okay. So watch the trailer.
Yes.
And then I can tell you about it. Yes. But there is a whole Jesus complex moment, which is like, oh, yeah.
Oh, Spidey.
Yeah.
But you were going to say about Spider-Man
in
relation to First Impact, right?
Well, yeah. So they had this TV show back in the 80s called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends with Iceman and Firestar. So it was him and a couple of buddies that they were all roommates. Iceman being an X-Man, that was kind of weird. Firestar, hey, I never heard about her. She seems kind of cool, but they weren't like really necessarily mixing ice and fire, like having water and fire is that way. But it totally made sense. They were using their powers sometimes together to like melt the ice and I don't know, put out a fire. But anyway, in the TV show, those characters were interesting. Firestar was never actually a Marvel superhero character in the comic books until the show came out, and then they put her into the comics a few years later.
They probably did that because they realized that they had like a fan base.
They had a fan base, exactly.
So then they thought, okay, we can make a comic series about her, which makes sense. I mean, like sometimes you take a risk and you're not sure. So
well, and I think that was back in the day when they were still taking a lot of risks with the cartoon series, where it wasn't necessarily like they came out with the X-Men, different Astonishing X-Men and the other Uncanny X-Men, I think, where they had different art styles, but it was really taking a lot out of the comic books, right? This didn't. The very first episode is in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Mm-hmm. As part of that entire introduction is they have to have a villain. And it's a video game. Their villain is an arcade cabinet. Did you saw Kung Fury, right? Oh my gosh. We need to learn this.
I need to be cultured. I need to be cultured because I really don't know how I missed all of this pop culture growing up.
Kung Fury is a film that was through Kickstarter or Indiegogo last year or the year before. It finally came out, where it's a throwback to all these 80s or action flicks. Right, and at the very beginning, like he drives his car off of a roof, climbs up onto the hood, and starts shooting the bad guys. It's so over the top stupid, and he's fighting an arcade cabinet that's been taken over by the Nazis, and it's like a transforming arcade cabinet. Anyway, in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, it's a video game character that looks not very similar, but it reminds me of that scene where it's this like two-dimensional 8-bit kind of villain, kind of purpley or something. I remember. I don't quite remember. Maybe we'll put a link in our notes on YouTube.
Yeah, and then people, we'll do that so that people who are just as lost as me can understand exactly what Keith is talking about. Because right now, Keith is making no sense.
So anyway, the whole point is that they had to fight a video game character, a video game villain from, I don't know, some shooter or whatever, some shmup. And anyway, while I don't know, they probably do something stupid like freeze him with Iceman's ice, and then Firestar melts the ice, and then he gets electrocuted with the water. I don't know. It was the 80s.
Makes sense.
It was back in the day when if you get hit in the head, you get amnesia, and you get hit in the head again, you gain
remember. Yeah, that's true. He does have a point.
Yeah. And everything gets grounded or electrified with water. It's always the way. Yeah. So anyway, that Iceman was, and I think that show got me into the X-Men comics as well, because I was a fan of them. I remember back in the 60s, some of the old comics, Iceman, they called him, I think he was actually still called Iceman, but he was like Snowball Man. He was like a snowman. He was covered in snow instead of ice.
I think that's so sad. Poor guy.
And then really, I'm always confused by that character. Is he... As soon as he changes into Iceman, like
is he made out of solid ice?
Is he made out of solid ice, or is he just using like an ice armor on top of himself? And then, if so, how thick is that? Because that's not going to be all that thick.
Wouldn't that be heavy?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that really affect mobility? That's something that, you know what? If you know the answer to that, post some links to the information regarding Iceman and his ice powers, because that's actually a really interesting question that we never really sat down and actually went through or thought about.
No, and that's the thing. Like, you have superhero physics, and superhero physics also leads into new powers that get created. Like Firestar. Okay, she has the power of fire, but wouldn't she get burned? She's still human. She's still flesh, right? But no, she has fire resistance or a fire manipulation. Because I think she used to do fire manipulation and do kind of like weird like fire lassos or something. Or she did this one where somebody had fallen out of a building. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man couldn't get to them. Iceman couldn't get to him. So she was there, and she created like this cushion of warm air that kind of like...
So then is it just fire or is it just heat? Because heat and fire are two different things.
Fire and heat. So she had like a fire manipulation or a heat manipulation power on top of that. So
yeah, that's interesting. Because I mean, I wonder who would win in a fight between her and Pyro.
I wonder. Because Pyro was super cool.
Yeah, I know, right?
Pyro is cool.
Pyro's pretty cool. So I was thinking, well, wonder who would win in a fight between her and Pyro.
And you don't see that with Iceman, right? You don't see Iceman, like, he's got his little skateboard action, surfing action going on and leaving all kinds of water throughout the city frozen. Then what happened? Like, the question I always had is, what happens with those ice sheets that he makes? Do they melt?
Yeah, they probably melt.
Yeah, but like, you've lived in Canada long enough. You know that when things at weird angles melt, they're gonna crash and fall. It's gonna like damage cars, hit people over the head.
We also know that cities within superhero universes, both DC and Marvel, usually foot the bills for the superhero damages that are done, unless it's like Gotham, where Bruce Wayne suddenly makes a donation, a sizable donation to charity to cover the expenses of restructuring a building or whatever, and that's because he's out of his goodwill, but not really. We all know that he knows his friends messed up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's in Shield. They have a company called Damage Control, where what they do is they go up and clean up after the superheroes do all the like saving the world. It's like right out of Avengers, the first Avengers movie. They go, they kick ass, and then they're all exhausted eating shawarma, right? Or passed out. Like Captain Brooks is like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And I thought that was the best little scene that they had in there. But at the same point, someone's got to do all that work. And the Hulk, I'm angry. I gotta clean up this crap I made.
And I mean, like, we don't really go into it in our game because I mean, like, you can lift cars, you can lift buses, you can throw those babies all over it. I mean,
exactly.
Who's gonna foot the bill after you wreck half the city?
I don't think the general really wants to.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, son, you're my weapon, but I ain't paying for your messes.
Yeah, like
one day we might do voiceovers for our characters. That would be fun.
But I don't know. Like, I think because your experiences. So Keith's experience, for those of you who haven't clued in yet, Keith is a very big comic book buff. I'm a bit more on the anime side, so like I know a little bit more about anime, whereas Keith knows really more so about like comics, traditional like Western comic stuff. But when I think about the elemental powers in our game, I think about and in relation to the whole like what happens when you like superheroes destroy buildings and cities while they're doing their job. I think of one of my favorite animes, which is Fairy Tail, which the main character, his name is Natsu, and he's a fire dragon slayer. So his ability...
A fire dragon slayer?
Yes.
So that's a very specific type of dragon slayer. Is there an ice dragon slayer?
Yes.
Is there a black dragon slayer?
Yes. But it's a shadow dragon.
Okay, shadow. Okay, so it's... Because I go by, say, the D&D dragons. Mm-hmm. You have any of the chromatic dragons, any of the ones that you name by color are the bad ones, and the ones that you name by metals. So like silver, gold, platinum, bronze. Those are the good ones. Are there any good dragons?
So for those of you who do watch or don't watch, the dragons are good. The dragons...
so this guy is the bad guy?
No. So hold on. I don't want to spoil too much of the story for those who still watch the show or whatever. But he's a fire dragon slayer, but it's a type of magic. Everything in the show is based around magic.
Oh, okay.
So fire dragon slaying magic, wait for it, is magic that allows you to slay a dragon using fire as the element.
So he has to slay dragons using fire.
He doesn't have to slay dragons. It's an ancient...
He just has the ability. So he gets the ability to actually slay dragons, but it's actually fire magic. He's a fire wizard.
Yes, but it's an ancient form of magic. So it's a form of magic that you can only get from... Well, in the traditional sense, you can only get it from a dragon. So the dragons give them the ability to kill them. It's like, dude, here, this is my magic bullet. This is my silver bullet. This is the only thing that'll kill me. I want you to have it. No. What happened was, without spoiling too much of the story, there was a war. There was a war with the dragons versus humans. There was a war. During this war, one of the greatest wizards known to man came up with a style of magic specifically for killing dragons. And what the magic does is it actually allows a human to take on the properties of a dragon, because the only thing that can kill another dragon is a dragon, right? Because dragons are the most powerful creatures. So it allows a human to gain the abilities of a dragon and the characteristics of a dragon. So dragon slaying magic and all slaying magic, because there's not just dragon slayers, there's god slayers. Yeah, god slaying magic is so sick. Anyway, getting back to my point though, part of a slaying magic is that you are immune to the element that you have the magic for.
Okay.
So Natsu cannot be hurt by any form of fire. There is no fire magic that can damage Natsu. There is none, except for a slayer's magic that is of a higher order. So it goes like dragons, then you have gods. Gods are above dragons. Okay. So a fire god slayer
could hurt
Natsu fire. Because his magic is on a lower order than theirs. But outside of that, he's immune to all fire magic.
Okay.
And his main rival is Gray, who is an ice wizard.
Right.
And that's why it's really interesting. And they're so powerful that usually when they go on different... So similar to First Impact, where you have to go on quests and missions, they make their money from actually going and solving regular people's problems because they're the ones with magic. And
using fire and ice.
Yes, and invariably they destroy
I lost my herd of goats. Can you find them? Yes, I will find them with fire.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And invariably they destroy cities because they're so powerful and they don't realize just how powerful they are. And
wow.
And and invariably it gets deducted from their reward money. So they're almost always broke. But again, same idea of, a lot of shows go with elemental parts because I think elements are just so interesting, especially when you take a different approach to how elements are treated. When people say to us, oh, it's like Avatar, right? Well, yes, I know. No, it's not like Avatar. We're not
doing all the bendings,
and we're also not dealing with the sub bendings and all of that. Like you are a superhero and you control the 4 elements. And
thematically, the story is that Earth is under attack.
Yeah.
And we have a character, Chief Olani, who tells you that the Earth is crying out in pain, and the reason why you have these powers, even though the Chief isn't entirely correct, the reason why you have the powers is that you must defend the planet, and that's why you get these powers.
Yeah.
So like all of these other ones where it's all elemental based, they change. Sort of based on what story you're trying to tell.
Correct.
So it's the storytelling involved that actually does that.
And then when they have separate characters like Captain Planet. Do you remember Captain Planet?
Captain Planet! He's wearing his Captain Planet shirt today!
Really?
Yeah!
Captain Planet was so good!
I get reading here, but he just had ankle surgery and he just got back and he's probably half hopped up on goofballs. I don't know. So the poor guy can't hop in here. But we Joe you otherwise.
Captain Planet was good. And Captain Planet was good because it was an environmentalist show. That was the real narrative, but it used the idea of like the elements and
elements in combination with spirit to become the superhero, the embodiment of Gaia to the spirit of the planet in order to protect the world from.
So you're more like Captain Planet, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Right? In our game, you're more like Captain Planet than Aang from Avatar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like you're trying to save it from one of the elements trying to be dominant over
you're not. It's not that sort of.
Yeah, it really is a lot more like Captain Planet, and you get to switch between all your powers on the fly, which is great. So if you like, ice power, your water-based ice power, then you use that, or you can switch to fire. You can defend with fire and attack with earth,
and you can level and grow your skills to suit yourself, which is what we really envisioned for the game anyway, right?
Yeah.
We wanted players to be like, you know what? If you really prefer the earth element and you want to focus more on developing that skill, you have the opportunity to do that. You don't have to be pigeonholed to, well, I guess I have to be good at everything.
Yeah, because you're not. You can eventually. If you want to play that long. But we also, because the game is also built in virtual reality or for virtual reality, we want to make sure that people have that option of do they want to play a shorter experience, or do they want to play a really long experience? Because that's one of the things that we've found that's been missing in VR games.
Oh, yeah.
Is like there's not many games in there that are, you can get those short repetitive games. Like I love Space Pirate Trainer. But you go in for a few matches and then you're done. You're just like, okay, it's just
because gameplay doesn't really change. Nothing
changes,
new. Nothing
repetitive.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but having a story and having that long form experience winds up becoming, oh, okay, now there's reasons for me to be in VR for a much longer period of time.
There's reasons for me to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the big thing. There's a reason for you to come back and see what happens next.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how people like the game soon. Next year, sometime.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So, So I think. One of the other characters I wanted to talk about. What was that? I think it was called The Outsiders. It was a sort of a Batman comic. This is another character that I used to read up on. I like the character a little bit. It reminded me. Anyway, the character's name is Metamorpho. He's a DC comic hero who was, I guess, a lower level hero. He didn't quite make the Justice League of America, but he made The Outsiders. Funny thing that they had like a subgroup called The Outsiders. But it was like Batman subgroup. I'm too busy for this. You guys go do this. I got to go to a party.
Hey, could have been worse. Could have been like how Marvel has Squirrel Girl.
I love Squirrel Girl.
Anyway, that's a sore point on me. Yeah. Anyway, continue. You're saying about
I was saying
Metamorpho.
Squirrel Girl.
Oh God,
She's just
no
funny.
one likes Squirrel Girl.
She's funny. She can take on anybody. Okay, so anyway.
She doesn't even make sense.
So with Metamorpho, he has the power of the elements. And he also has that, like the Super Skrull, he's actually, like, each leg is a different color and each arm is a different color, his torso is a different color in his head. And it's like, oh, okay, so he has all these different sort of textures and feels and looks to him, which is very primitive in a way, but I think it kind of suits him. It's kind of neat. I remember reading only one comic with him in it, and then he was in, I think he was in Justice League Unlimited.
I believe so. That's where I remember seeing him.
Yeah, so, yeah. Anyway, he had some cool powers. So, here's a question. If you had the power of Earth, and you could manipulate the Earth, what would you do with that?
Well, given what usually trends on Twitter, I would just burrow a little hole and then live like Patrick from SpongeBob for the rest of my life, because Twitter honestly depresses me. The things that I see, I can't. Society is messed up. If I had the power of Earth and I could control Earth in any shape or form, who knows? I may get adventurous. I may rob a bank. Well, not rob a bank. Rob banks, plural.
How would you do that?
How would I do that?
Yeah.
Well, first I burrow underground.
Okay.
Like, see, I wouldn't
with
be
your
enough.
army of mole men.
No, I control the Earth. It's like Earth move, and it does that. Like it just moves, and then go underground. Like, okay, is it similar to like Tara from Teen Titans? I'm not sure if you remember her. She was a love interest for Beast Boy in the animated series, and her power was over Earth and like rocks and like stuff like that.
I vaguely recall her, but
well, if it's like that, where you can manipulate the Earth and you can like lift rocks with your mind and like do cool stuff like that, I would always do covert stuff. I would never just be like flashy with my power, because that's stupid. That's how the police get you. Because no, you said power over Earth, you didn't say immortality. So, so I'm not, or invulnerability. I'm just gonna, covertly whoop, go underground, come back, whoop. All right.
And not that I would necessarily use it for evil, but the idea of being covert with your powers is, I think, really important. And comic book stories typically are all about secret identity, right? And not revealing it. Meanwhile, like, everybody knows Clark Kent's identity and Bruce Wayne and Peter Parker, not from the reader's perspective,
Queen.
But the people in their particular franchises. It's like they have a lot of people who know their secret identities after a while. But it would be one of those things. It's like, if you saw bank heist going, or let's say you're walking to a convenience store. You're just there to buy a stick of gum. No, better yet, you walk into a pharmacy to buy medication because you have a splitting headache, a migraine that's setting in. It's like, I just don't want to deal with any crap today.
Yeah.
Ah, shit, it's under attack. It's a robbery is going on. Some people want to steal some drugs, whatever, at the pharmacy. What do you do?
And in case the person is in rock.
In rock?
Yeah.
From what, like, bursting out of the ground? There is a basement, typically. In
Damn it.
building.
See, this is why I don't like the power of Earth, because it's too limited.
But what if you had, okay, so what if you had the power, like, from Avatar? Toph's power of being able to see with her feet.
Oh, like extrasensory, like, okay.
What I would call that tremor sense. It's a D&D term. Tremor sense. You can
hear him say it. Tremor sense. Okay.
Tremor sense.
So you can see with your feet. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had that ability.
Yeah. What if you can control? What if can you control? Let's say you can control the concrete. That was a hard thing to say. With your power.
I'd trip a fool.
And trip him?
Yeah. As he's running out. No. I let them think they're getting away. As they're running away, I trip him.
Oh.
With the concrete. He falls. The gun, then I would try to make like a spike with like the earth to like get rid of the gun, so it, for sure it's out of his range.
Yeah.
Then I get up and I whack him.
Man.
And if he has a car, I puncture the tires using my earth spikes.
Yep, fair enough.
And then he can't get away.
See, I just
and then the gun's gone.
I'd be really simple.
How would you do it?
I would just if say he's running out, I create a wall. He hits the wall falls over on top of him. I'm simple. It's like I'm not gonna have time to think.
Oh, see, you're boring.
All right, fine. I'll create a series of earthen ankle cuffs with spikes in them on the inside. Bam! They lock him into place.
This is why it was so unfair.
And then a bunch of spears.
That in Avatar, Aang was the last airbender because air is the only element that you can always bend. You can always bend air because there's no vacuums on Earth. If you're in space, yeah. But there are no vacuums on Earth. You can always bend air.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not fair. It was not fair that he had that. But even though you can always bend air, it's also the one element that doesn't... It's versatile, but it's not very powerful.
No, it's not.
Which is the sad stuff.
Unless we had some kind of air that smelled bad. Then all of a sudden that's powerful.
Guys.
Powerful onions.
If you see me drop in 3 seconds, you know why.
1, 2, 3. There we go. And the door is closed in this office. It's great. So, now that we got Dudley out of the way, now we can talk about what we really want to talk about. French diamonds.
Okay, we're getting off track now. Anyway, so with that being said,
I think we talked about a lot of some superheroes. I mean, there's plenty out there that deal with the elements, and I think that a lot of these superhero either individuals or teams are all based on thematically different sort of ideals, and that's what we're trying to get across. First impact, rise of a hero. You are a hero who has control of all 4 elements. Mm-hmm. They help you move with your different states of locomotion, from teleportation to flight to super jump, which is kind of neat and scary.
But it's always good for a thrill.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and super speed. So you can run like the Flash. And then you can realize like 90-degree turns in super speed. That's just silly. Yeah. You're going to break something if you do that.
Yeah.
Gravity doesn't make any sense. Physics doesn't make any sense.
But that's the beauty of being a superhero, right? It's
superhero science, as they call it. Where they do things and natural laws. It's not the science behind these things doesn't matter because it's a fantasy story. It's not like people who have built entire engineering manifests based on Star Trek, right? Who I can write everything about Star Trek. That's great, technical manuals and everything. There are You're staring at me, blinking. People do this, and this is like they're almost like writing these technical manuals for the future.
I see.
Would you rather have that, or would you rather have Twitter? Let me ask you that question.
I mean, on a good day, though, Twitter has some things that are funny. But I mean, things got a bit wonky when you have people more interested in celebrities and what celebrities are doing than, say,
advancing science
or political strife in the world. Like, you know, I'm not going to call names, but we all know, like, different places in the world right now that are severely suffering, where there's stuff like a genocide happening, and, like, it's really sad. And when you sit on Twitter and you realize that more people are tweeting and caring about celebrities and what they're doing than what's actually happening in the world, it's really sad, because celebrities don't pay your bills. Just so y'all know. They don't.
If celebrities want to pay our bills, reach us. We're available.
Check us out. Follow us at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or on Twitch. You know where to find us. Yeah. But outside of that, average day people, just remember that there is a life out there outside of what Hollywood tells you or what social media feeds to you.
It's in the comic books. Read them.
And on that note, we'd like to thank you for tuning in for this week for Red Meat. On Twitch.
Yeah. Thank you very much again. We'll be back again next week. It'll be our last one for the year because it's going to be right before we break for our holidays. And so we'll I don't know. We'll have something special.
Subscribe, please.
See ya.
Bye.